Yes, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to INC Live and welcome back to the UFC 317 preview show. My name is Karl Bainbridge, holding the fort for this evening, and I am joined again, back by popular demand. It is Rob Nakamura. Rob, you might consider you to be the Donald Duck to my Daffy, as it were. We've got a lot of duck-themed double entendres going on the show for obvious reasons.
My man, I'm not going to be able to keep up with you on that, so I'm going to let you ride the horse on that one. But I do appreciate it. The fact that you guys didn't flood his DMs or fill up the comments with like, what is this yank doing here? And get this guy out of here. He's ruined the show. The fact that that didn't happen yet is still, I appreciate it very much. And I'm glad to be here once again.
Trust me, most of the comments are usually criticizing me. I have actually had people before who can't understand my accent.
You know what? And I've had that problem myself, so carry on.
Yeah, and so I just want to say a big thank you to Rob for once again stepping in for Joe, and I also want to say a big thank you for everyone who gave the UFC 316 preview show a lot of support, and hopefully we'll be able to do so again with this sequel. As mentioned before, we are going to be talking about UFC 317, but there have been a lot of big stories which have been happening in the world of mixed martial arts, one in particular. Now, the post-fight reaction show for UFC Baku will be online by now. Joe has had his own personal take on that big story. But Rob, I don't think we can continue talking about 317 before talking about the news that came after the Baku card, which is that Jon Jones has retired. He has vacated the UFC heavyweight title, and now that belt belongs in the hands of Tom Aspinall, who, in the eyes of a lot of people, was seen as the rightful champion. So, I'll start by phrasing the question in this way then. What do you think was the biggest factor in Jon Jones choosing now to give up the belt? Did he legitimately not want anything to do with Tom? Was it the stories that came out about the misdemeanor charges over in Albuquerque? Where do you personally stand on this? Why do you think Jon Jones has chosen to vacate at this moment in time?
I want to absolutely and confidently say that Jon Jones absolutely sucks. I hate almost everything about his character outside of the octagon, and it puts me in a vicious duality that I hate about what sports can do to my opinion. Like, if he was just an average individual, I would have wrote him off so many stories ago. But he captivates me. He makes me wonder. He entertains me. He's been doing the most magical MMA career that has ever existed, like him or not. So he puts me in this weird middle ground, which I don't like. You guys would never see me before, but I'm glad to be here again. And man, bro, I like to know where I stand on stuff, and this is not. He's such a gray character, and you could just say he's flat out wrong now with these new charges. He's everything you don't want, like someone so talented to be like. You don't want someone so talented and so great in just one category to also be so bad in another. And it also makes me feel bad that I got to write this guy off as guilty before I even give him a chance. Like, because I've already given him that chance, multiple times, and been on the wrong side of the let's wait, let's see. This looks ugly, man, and it falls right into all the things we knew about him, right? When he drinks, he becomes the Jon Jones we dislike. And I don't know if you have a version of Jon Jones that you do like, but the part of him, the version of him, the him that is real when he drinks, I don't know, man. I think that touches a lot of people in a lot of different ways and just can make me go on a soapbox like I already did. So there we go, man.
I'm in pretty much the same boat, to be honest. I think that in terms of what we see from Jon Jones in the cage, and especially the first half of his career, I would say everything up until the first Daniel Cormier fight was incredibly impressive. And I don't think anybody can take that away from Jon Jones. But you have to speak about that with asterisks. You've got the failed steroid tests. You've got the hit and run incident. You've got the reports of domestic violence rumours, speculation about some of the things he's done there. And then you look at this sort of second half of his career, And especially, I think the part that I find the most jarring is he has had all these indiscretions. And rather than the UFC, in my opinion, doing what they should have done, which is making an example of him, they almost enabled his behaviour. Like, they moved an entire pay-per-view on 7 days' notice on Christmas time just to placate him, just to say, allow him to compete, because Navarro wouldn't, because he failed the drugs test. And I just think that you can understand why Jon Jones behaves the way he does when he has people like Dana White who almost sort of give his bad behaviour a pass. And that's the part that bothers me. Like, if you are somebody who judges Jon Jones purely based on what you see in Cage, I'm not going to criticise you for doing that. But it's hard for me to separate the man from the performer. It's not as extreme, but it's kind of like a Chris Benoit situation. I can't separate Chris Benoit, the man, from the in-ring performer in the same way I can't separate Jon Jones, the man, from the fighter.
And that's fair enough if you feel that way, dude. And I respect that quite a bit. And I try my best to keep them separate. It bleeds over when he does weird stuff like this, bringing it together, right? Like, okay, his stuff outside of the cage, well, that's on you if you want to judge that. If you just judge on the inside, that's your style. If you come in, whatever, that's all opinion. When you start bringing your nonsense into the fight game, not fighting, not being direct, dragging it out, like, what, like, honestly, like, I'm not even the biggest Tom Aspinall fan. Go look at my stuff. I'm still more like, hey, fight and prove it. This is the fight game. Fight and prove it. But I want to apologize. Like, I want to apologize on behalf of Team America, because Jon Jones is giving off all the symptoms of, like, our bad sides, like what we're, the bad side of what we're about. And, like, bringing it to Tom, why I brought Tom up was, man, I feel bad for the young man. Like, I know he's in his prime. I shouldn't even call him whatever. He's just a man. But, like, I respect him for standing on business and knowing where his spot was in the line and not faltering. But at the same time, like, Jon Jones, why'd you do that? Like, why'd you do that? Like, bro, I'm not even here trying to argue that you should have fought him. Like, that's a whole nother argument we could get into. But it's not about whether you should have fought him, not. If you want to retire or whatever, why did you drag it on this long? Why would you steal time from another man unnecessarily? I get it. I get if you were playing some kind of mental ass war game, which you have done with many opponents, to try to find a crack in his psychology to drag him out if you're going to fight him. That was genius. That was like Art of War stuff. But just to do it and flame out, that sucks. And I don't like it.
And it's hurt Tom. I think it's hurt the heavyweight division, because that division, I mean, heavyweight is a weak division as it is. But the fact we've had to wait 2 years to try and get some kind of movement forward, I think it's done severe damage. And on a similar note as well, I think that the UFC and their sort of approach to this sort of post-Jones era is also interesting as well, because I've watched the press conference where Dana White announced that Jon Jones had retired, and he was asked about Francis Ngannou, because I've heard some reports that Francis has one fight left on his PFL deal. I've heard others say that part's expired, so technically he's a free agent. And I know that Dana has issues with Francis Ngannou and the way he left the company. But if there's a time to put those to one side and do what's best for business, this is it. To just say, look, we had some, like, put it this way, I do not like Vince McMahon, the person, whatsoever. He's done some really scummy things. But one of the things that Vince McMahon also did was, even though he had personal beefs with some of his performers, he was willing to put those to one side if he was best for business. And this is one of those situations, I think, where Dana needs to do what's best for business. Because, let's be honest, who's Tom going to fight next? You've got Cyril Gane, whose stock is at an all-time low right now. Volkov, who Aspinall's already beat. And Gelton Almeida, who's one of the biggest one-trick ponies in the division. So you're limited for choices. I think if you need to try and give heavyweight that jolt in the arm. I think biting the bullet and going for the Francis fight is the best thing the UFC can do.
My man, then you are too smart to know in your heart. You know, that's on paper. On paper. I agree with you. But you know Dana too much. You've been studying the game too much. You know Dana don't do that. Dana is a one direction. Talk about a one trick pony. He's not a one trick pony at all. He's a one direction. He's a one direction donkey. If you want to go with that one, I just made that shit up. Like if he says if you both agree to go left, you better go left until there's an ocean. Like there's no backing out with that guy. Like he's pretty when you've left him, he is like a woman scorned. Like that, he does not forget. He blacklists a lot of people. He holds grudges. He's held grudges against people who he was way closer to and had way more money made off of than Francis. You think Francis is gonna get like a leave of a pass on this? No way. Also, let's also throw this out there. The heavyweight division, I went on this rant before. I don't know if I did it with you, but I'm going to do it here right now. The heavyweight division, everybody's worried about it. Just like you said, is like, okay, look at the matchups we already have. Great point. I've said that. So like minds. But the other part, like, dude, the heavyweight division has had, check this out, has had the title now vacated more times than it's ever been defended. Like consecutively or in just general. It's the most vacated title in all the titles. There's a problem there, and I don't know what it is, but the most consistent person there is Dana White. Yes, the issues go back before his existence, but still, I don't know what's the deal there. But I can tell you that Francis is getting paid, and the connection and network through the Middle East and the PFL and their total business and mutual alignments are so strong there, dude. He's not going nowhere. The PFL Africa is just about to get started. He's not going nowhere.
And one of the things that the John Jones saga has done is it's kind of overshadowed the upcoming pay-per-view, UFC 317, taking place this Saturday. And I kind of get the impression, like obviously 317 will serve as International Fight Week. It's always held either the last week of June or the first week of July. And the UFC normally do try to make a big deal about this card. It's almost kind of become somewhat of their WrestleMania. So they always try and get like a big marquee main event. They stack the undercard. And I don't know if it's because the company's stock seems to be low right now. The attitudes towards the fans seems quite negative. I don't get the feeling this is capturing the imagination in the same way that an International Fight Week normally does. Even though we have a really good main event on our hands.
My man, this is the most dead, and I say this with 100% confidence, the most dead International Fight Week there's ever been in the history of International Fight Weeks. Even the first one, just cut it out of curiosity, because like, what the hell are we doing here? That had more buzz on it, just out of pure like, what is this? What is it going to be? What are we doing? An expo? Yes, we've never had an expo before. Like, so
I'm tempted
to be here with this. Go ahead.
I'm tempted to say the first one might have been 148, Silver Sun and 2.
You're a wizard to even come close to remembering that. I would not be able to pull that out without looking it up. But with that being said, I live here in Vegas, dude. Like, the different events in this that happen in my city directly affect life in this city. It's a big, small place. So when there's an influx of energy or people or things or stuff, you feel it. Of course, I'm all in for the MMA culture. So this is hitting terribly, to be honest. And I know, once again, this is for a lot of fans will come in probably still. It'll probably still make good money. But I'm going to be honest, like, for the amount of asks that I usually like, this is not a flex by any means, but I usually get asked by a lot of people, like every year, like, hey, you going to IFW? You want to meet up for IFW? Like, like, what's up? This year I've gotten way less. So just going by my own social circle, which means absolutely nothing other than just my own perspective. That like I'm really, I don't know what to blame. I don't know if it's, you know what, I do have something to blame. Let me just throw this out. Boomerang question back to you. You think this is, things in the UFC haven't felt right? Agreed.
I totally
Okay.
agree.
Okay. So moving with that statement, Dana White's been missing mostly. He's been running other stuff. He's got other people in different positions. I don't see how nothing can feel the same because the guy who makes the spark isn't there. It's not the same. There's the question. Do you think the absence of Dana White is actually the real root cause of a lot of these things not feeling good?
I think to an extent, yes, because, well, first off, I think that Dana's role within TKO is a lot less hands on. I actually think that Hunter Campbell's the guy who's making the majority of the decisions these days. But without having
Exactly.
Dana in that more hands on position in the way that he was with Zuffer, I do think we're suffering because, look, I have some issues with some of Dana White's business practices and the man himself, but he was passionate about this sport, especially around the sort of 2004, 2005 era when he was really trying hard to change the perception of the sport. And obviously, Spike came along and then the Ultimate Fighter, and the ball started rolling from there. Um, I do think that Dana is, because Dana is not as passionate as he once was. I do think we are suffering. Honestly, we're on autopilot right now. That's how it feels. It's just as long as we keep getting events out and we're sort of appeasing ESPN, we're appeasing our backers who are paying for big events over in Baku or places like that. As long as they're focusing on that side of things, they're going to keep doing the exact same thing. It's very much sort of, I've made a lot of pro wrestling comparisons here, but this is kind of like what WWE was going through before Vince left.
I wish I knew anything about the WWE to bounce off of that one, but I would say that you can't. It's very obvious that. By the way, the autopilot analogy was great. Um, Listen, I'm willing to forgive it to a point, because if this was because Dana's got to be busy doing the TV deal, which is now doing what I was telling people is very possible. When a sport really gets big, it's on multiple channels. It's not just on one anymore. And so I'm glad that's the rumor that's coming out. But if he's been busy with that, that's the dragon they gotta slay. I get it. I get if the plane's got to be on autopilot if that's the case. And if he comes back and then the flavor changes back to normal, that's cool. But this version of the UFC, I don't know, like, if the masses can, like, I don't, they seem to be checking out is that was what I'm trying to get to.
It's a very positive start to us talking about this fight card here, and we're going to be talking about that in a bit more detail with our prelims. You can see those on your screen right now. Now, one of the normal trends that usually comes about with International Fight Week, Madison Square Garden, is if the UFC have a kind of company project, a young star that they really want to get behind, more often than not, they put them on the prelims of these big fight cards. Is there anybody who you think might fill that role based off the prelims this year?
I don't know if I don't. I actually I don't. I don't think anybody really fits that exact role that you speak of. To be honest, now that I'm looking at it,
I think you'll maybe get
it
behind people like Hyder Emil, Jacoby Smith as well. He's going to be fighting Nico Price opening fight. 10-0, massive favourite. So I expect him to maybe finish Nico Price quite early in that one. Outside of that, I'm really looking between them. I think McKinney versus Borshev could be fun for the first round before McKinney inevitably gasses out. But not many fights. Not many fights. I mean, RoboCop obviously had that good fight with Cannonier. I think that was maybe a jump too far for him, but very entertaining fight. Probably one of the better Apex main events so far this year, but I'm stretching it. I'm really struggling.
I feel like first off, good calls, and yes, Mr. Emil, yes, that's probably he fits that, but Like, what does beating Nico Price do in 2020, 25? That's why I disagree. That's why when I first looked at it, I was like, nah, not so much on that one. But I can see it by structure. You're right there. I just see that they did a. Why I said no. Okay, to back up my own bad answer, let's double down. Is more like there's a lot of known faces. They didn't, which they have done in other pay per view cards as of recently. Go check them out. There was quite a few like debutantes and like DWS guys like still coming out on those cards. So I don't know. I just felt this is a little bit better. There's a little more known recognition, and for Hermanson and Rodriguez to be in the featured prelim, that's kind of what I was looking at. I was like, yeah, they gave us some people we know and fight with a little bit of weight to it.
One of the other things I want to bring up before we move on to the main card itself, because this was a fight booking which caused a lot of friction online. What do you make of the UFC booking Cedricus Dumas to fight on this card? Bearing in mind that it's only a few weeks ago that he was arrested, he's been charged with some criminal offences, it's the latest in a long line of issues surrounding the fighter, and yet here he is, part of International Fight Week. Where do you personally stand on that?
Great look, UFC. Like, this circles back to what we're talking about before, right? Like, um, does it matter? Like, does it matter if people win? Like, you guys gotta have you guys. I know you guys got footballers who are not the best individuals in maybe in regular life, but because they do what they do on the pitch, there's a different type of judgment that happens. You know, I know for a fact in every sport there's favoritism that goes on. So Cedricus Dumas is not necessarily like a star like that, but if he wins, that's all you got to do. Like, that's the sport. Like, it's fighting. It's not the ballet. It's not politics. You know, it's just fighting. Like, so with that being said, I don't. So full disclosure, you may not follow me. You might not know me for nothing. I interview lots of fighters, and Cedricus is one of them. And I I have been critical of his situation in the past on multiple times, and what I'm just gonna say here now is it keeps involving the same individual, his baby mama, if you want to put it, his ex girlfriend. The two of them together are toxic individuals. I'm not taking any blame off of him. You know, Bozo did Bozo things, and he's got to face his day in court. But if you people just do better, because these two people keep poisoning each other's lives and taking away from their potential, both of them. So that's all I want to say. That's the real shame in this, and I hope we can focus on some better representatives of International Fight Week. He's not the once again not the best representative of America or American culture.
So when we were talking about fighters like the young prospects that normally feature on the International Fight Week cards, prior to January, we may have very well been talking about Peyton Talbot. But here we sit, about 7 months after his first loss in the UFC to Ioni Barcelos. He is, however, going to be on the main card. He's opening up the show. It's going to be a bantamweight bout up against Felipe Lima. And it is Lima who comes into this fight as a minus 170 favourite. You can get Talbot at plus 145. So we're going to go back to January, UFC 311. And we're going to be talking about that fight between Talbot and Barcelos. Was that the bookmakers and the fans underestimating a grizzled veteran in Barcelos, or him exploiting a hole to Talbot's game?
Dude, first off, both. We're going to go with both. You're hitting on two things. Barcelos way more dangerous than people was giving him credit for. Way more. Clearly, he's way more dangerous than what people were giving for. And the dude's tough out. It's a good fighter. Maybe not world class. That's the thing with everybody now. It's like, oh, if you're not world champion, you're nothing. No, he's dangerous. And then there's a clear and obvious hole in Peyton's game. Both things happening simultaneously made for a disastrous recipe. This is a heat check. And this is almost, I like to see this. I was worried because the UFC wasn't doing this for a little while by putting some like young names, if you will, some early talent buzz. People get some buzz behind them early, if you will, was what I was going for. They don't they weren't doing that for a little bit, and I was getting nervous, and they're doing it again. So this is one of those, and I'm I'm real interested. Like all eyes on Peyton, right? Like all eyes on Talbot. This is like, are you for real or not? Or are you gonna end up with all the well, what the kids say, the fraud check? You're gonna end up fraud check. What's happening?
Yeah, I've never been the biggest lover of that fraud check term. I think when you're a fighter quite early in your run, there's almost a little bit of leeway that you can. I'm not saying that losing fights is ever any good. And trust me, there's been many fighters over the years I've held early career losses against. But I do think that when you are somebody he's what, 24, 25 years old? And this is a sport where you don't peak until your mid 30s. And he fought a guy who was just a bit more savvy, a bit more of a veteran. He saw, hey, Peyton Talbot has issues with being put on his back. We saw that against Nicaragua, who a lot of people forget. Nicaragua dominated the first round of that fight against Peyton Talbot. And kudos to Peyton. He corrected the mistakes. He started utilizing a style that neutralized the grappling threat, and he ended up winning that fight. But Barcelos followed that game plan, and his chain wrestling was brilliant. I am interested. I'm kind of in the same boat as you. I am actually glad that the UFC aren't doing what they did with Sean O'Malley and just giving him a layup to get that win back. They are actually said, you know what, we're going to throw this guy back into the deep end, face another promising youngster. Whichever one comes out at the top, we're going to put our weight behind. And that doesn't mean that the other guy's done. It just means he might get to the top a little bit slower than the guy who ends up winning.
And shout out not just to the matchmakers, but shout out to the guys in the camps for taking it too, because there's a lot of nowadays, dude. There's a lot more strategic maneuvering, if you will, than back in the day. Back in the day, is just like a lot of people were just yes. A lot of people were taking the no penalty. If you don't know what I'm saying, if you say no to the UFC, there's usually a penalty, subtle one, not so subtle one in a lot of cases. If you know, you know. But the point is, I'm happy to see it. I'm not calling. First off, I hardly, almost never use the term fraud check. Used it when it first came out because I thought it was like what it meant, something different. But then it started being used derogatory. But his now, hey, hole exposed, hole made worse by opponent. You come back out and that hole isn't fixed. Well, then let the comments fly, because if it's that apparent to all of us, you're just gonna now you got a floodgate. Now you're just gonna get ran through, and I don't think that's not the way to success in this sport.
And the big question that comes into this fight is Felipe Lima the guy that's going to try and exploit that Peyton Talbot hole? Because we've got a guy here with a 14-1 record. It's going to be his third fight in the UFC. He won his first one on like 5 days' notice against Muhammad Naimov, which I believe might have been in Saudi Arabia. So hometown advantage for Naimov, and he still came out on top in that one. He also ended up beating Miles Johns over in, I think it was the UFC Apex that fight might have taken place. He trains with All Stars in Sweden, which, for anybody who doesn't know that gym, 2 things stand out about it. Big overtrainers and very grappling heavy. So all the potential is there for Lima to maybe have an avenue to victory.
He has more than a maybe, bro. Like, let's be honest. He has more than a maybe chance, in my opinion, on this one. So things are looking good on that end. It's figuratively speaking, it's Talbot on the back foot here. Like, he's the one that's gotta prove it. You know, Lima's got a great chance, and I liked what I've seen from Lima before. Yo, I was hella high on Miles Johns. I still think Miles Johns is very good. But that win alone, like that win alone sells me. Like, yeah, I think Lima can do it.
What would you say are the big traits that Lima has that you're most impressed with?
Dude, it's... What can we say about a guy that is obviously shown that a lot of potential in a lot of different arenas already? Like, he can scrap with you. He can handle if the fight goes boring. He doesn't gas out. Like, early on, as early as you could have him so far, what we've had of him, He's checked the box. He can get into a real scrap, like I said, with someone who's proven. Like, let's be honest, nobody has the same weight or credibility to their name on Talbot's side of his resume that Lima has with that Miles Johns win.
Cameron
That's
Simon?
what I'm saying. Is it though? Like, I love Cameron Simon.
I think
First
at the time
I
it
love
was.
him. At the time. But that's not how it works now, right? We look back and now we look back on it with better eyes, and it's like, well, he was a hot prospect and he's good. I like Cameron, by the way. Good luck, Mr. Simon. Like, I want you to do well. But at the same time, that's not what it is. The reality is he's not holding water in this league. So what else? What else? What do you got?
So it's Cameron Simon, Yanis Gamori, and Nico Goya.
God bless them all, but I got nothing to say to that, right? So there we go. Like, and man, not like it means anything, but it doesn't mean anything at all. But there's a certain sector, the doofuses on the internet that they're going to be running up a lot of negativity on Peyton Talbot for other kind of reasons. So, like, it's a stupid game, but the game in the UFC is win and then make people like you. It's a two-parted game. Before it was just win. And like Lima has all the advantages going for him right now.
If you had to point out some of the strengths of Peyton Talbot, though, what would you say they are? Because there is a reason why the UFC put so much weight behind him early on.
He punches like a mule. I mean, like a mule kicks. Like the dude has serious power, and when he's applying himself going forward, dangerous young man. The problem is it doesn't seem like he's in recent times been able to stop the takedown, which once again, Barcelos is good. So we'll know for sure. That's why this is why this fight is so important for us to see, to know for sure what we're seeing. Because there's a lot of times we see fighters just like Cameron. We see him fight a couple times and your imagination runs wild on all what could be. Then reality is a whole different story.
There are elements to Talbot's game which I think obviously the takedown defense is obviously the big factor, the big hole that he needs to close up. But I do think there's some decision making in his striking which has gone away to try to negate the wrestling threat, because it's a lot of forward pressure. And as you know, it's very hard to shoot when you're on the back foot. So that's something I think he does well. A lot of body work too. So I think in terms of the technical side of things, he's doing the right thing in terms of striking. It's just the big thing that caught him out when it came to the Barcelos fight, it wasn't the initial takedown shot. It was when Barcelos started chaining it up and he couldn't keep up.
I would want to agree with you. I haven't watched the fight recently, and you sound like you recently did and broke it down so smart that I'm not going to fight with you on that. But in my mind, I remember him getting put down. Maybe there was some chain going into it, but I remember him getting put down and just more or less staying down. And the effort to get back up was even worse than the effort to not go down in the first place. If the shot wasn't coming, and I think, to give him credit in a little bit of trying to play it back in what feeble memory I have, is dead on shots that kind of came square. Peyton was on top of it. Anything that Barcelos had an angle on, he got picked up and put down. And it's I don't know. This is why we watch, right? This is why we watch, to find out for sure. Because like you said, Peyton coming forward, he can do it. He has the power. That's where his advantage. But I don't know, man. It's hard to learn UFC level wrestling when you're already in the UFC. Like I've barely seen it. It's happened, but it's rare.
So I'm going to assume that you're leaning towards Lima to win this one.
I am. I'm sorry I was so obvious. No surprise there.
That's fair enough. I mean, obviously, it's one of the joys of doing this show, in my opinion, is to like weigh up the pros and cons. And honestly, I've tried to be as impartial as I can about fights which deep down I know are probably going to be one-sided. I remember we did the preview for 266, and I actually had someone criticize me because he thought I was being too nice about Lauren Murphy.
You know, like I would rather any day of the week be criticized for going soft or being too nice than ever being like a dick, because I love these fighters too much, man. You know, like one thing or not, like no matter what I do within the sport, business wise or through media or whatever, who gives a shit? The I still respect the fighters. Like I'm a fan. I'm a fan forever. I've been a fan since day one. So like that part never stops. So I'm with you, bro.
I'm going to be leaning towards Lima as well. I think that he does have the capability with that gym to go wrestling heavy and try and test Talbot. I think that if Talbot, though, can keep it on the feet, or Lima chooses to keep it striking, Talbot's avenue to victory does get a lot greater. But I don't think Lima's going to take that chance.
I think he's going to be like a lot of the modern good fighters where they pretend like they're going to take that chance, and they get into that just long enough so that when he does shoot the shot, he's going to grab Peyton up and put him down just the way he wants to. That's the way I think of it, because he's Lima. That's the part that makes him. That's why I think he's such an easy pick for this fight, because he can. It's not advantageous for him to strike with him, but like, could he strike him and win? Like, yeah, he still could. Not the best way, but he still could. So add the element of like just walking through him on the ground. Yeah, that's a lot.
So we move on to fight number 2, and for this one we are going to the lightweight division. I have actually seen some bout orders for this card which have fight 2 and fight 3 shuffled around, but we're going to go based off the one which Marcel Dorf most recently posted. And for this one, it is the lightweight division, and it's a match that was originally supposed to take place at UFC 311. It is Beneil Dariush, who's going to be taking on Renato Moicano. Moicano comes in as a minus 170 favourite. You can get Beneil Dariush at plus 130. So, as mentioned before, this fight was originally supposed to take place in January, but Arman Sarukian had to pull out. He was injured, and Moicano was drafted into the main event on a day's notice to fight Islam Makhachev. So the question I have is, obviously, that fight didn't go well for Moicano. Submitted in the first round, Makhachev made it look fairly comfortable. Can you apply, given the circumstances, can you apply any kind of weight to Moicano's performance in that fight, or do we just sort of write it off in the same way we write off, say, Iaquinta versus Khabib?
Write it off. That's fight tax. Charge it to the game. Like the fact that the man made the fight happen was our treat. It's wildly unfair to measure an athlete who had insufficient prep time versus another who did. It's just not fair. Doesn't make sense. I don't even understand how you would even do the math on that. So yeah, it's definitely you tried. Like we'll forget about that loss.
And you can't hold it against Moicano for taking that fight.
No.
Like, the truth is, Moicano probably isn't going to get to a title match on merit, bearing in mind his age right now. You get this opportunity fall into your lap, and if you win, you sort of pull that Seth Petrozelli, you're made for life. You pulled off one of the great shocks of all time. You sort of go down as a bit of a cult hero. So I don't hold that against Moicano at all. Part of me does wonder, though, bearing in mind his background, part of me would like to have seen what Benny could have done against Makhachev. I'm not saying he would have won, but some of those grappling exchanges could have been fun.
Man, that'll go down as one of the question marks. I think one of the bigger question marks of Mr. Dariush's career, to be honest. I hope he's fully settled with that, because that's a what if I could talk about for an hour. Now, I'm not going to let that Seth reference go. Great job, by the way. Like, good job bringing him up. But yeah, no, of course, you got to. Like, the fighters who don't take the opportunities, first off, you got to. That's just, I agree with you. High five. But two, the other side of that is you get the UFC on your side.
Mm-hmm.
Nothing makes them like love you more or deal with you more or promote you more than fixing their schedule. They have a hole in the boat and you fix that hole, you are the man. Like, or woman, that happens too. So like that's the way. That is the way. It's great business. It's great for your brand. It's great for you as a fighter. Take the 1 in 100 shot, and whatever's like end up on a poster on somebody's wall for all time.
So we're going to talk about Beneil Dariush in a bit more detail here. So a 22-6-1 record. Now this is going to be the first time he's fought in 18 months. So his last fight was against Arman Sarukian, which was a loss in the main event in December 2023. It is the second of two straight losses because he also lost to Charles Oliveira at 289. But before that, a very impressive winning streak. So you had Mateusz Gamrot, Tony Ferguson, Carlos Diego Ferreira was in there, Drakkar Klose, which was an incredible comeback at 248. And along with that, you've also got Thiago Moises, Drew Dober, Michael Johnson, Jim Miller. So if you were in that sort of like bottom top 15 kind of range, Beneil's pretty much beaten you. And maybe it's sort of maybe it's him being sort of one of my favourites from when I first started going into the sport, sort of 2016 time. I've always had a soft spot for Beneil, and for whatever reason, I don't think that the majority of the fan base, I don't think they take him seriously. Maybe it's because he's going grey, maybe it's because he hasn't got the best physique, but I always find a lot of people maybe treat him as a less serious threat than what they maybe should.
Well, first off, let's start off with a disclosure. I am beyond bias for Beneil Dariush. I can't really go too much further without rocking his gym is on my shirt. King's MMA down in the San Diego area. Go check it out. Have fun. DM me so you can go from having a free class to having like a free class. You know what I mean? They'll be expecting you. So the point is, everything I say here, folks, is covered in like fandom for Dariush. Love the guy. So yeah, people. What's funny is that there's a whole bunch of people who don't even recognize his danger, and then anyone who does recognize him actually knows he's dangerous. Yeah, he's got gray hair. Who cares? He's the same age as Moicano, and he just didn't fight it like a lot of guys do. You think Arlovski's beard is that black, folks? Anyways, sorry. No,
trust me, I'm seeing the grey hairs coming through every day, and it's daunting.
There's a reason why I'm wearing a hat. So back to Beneil though. I love the guy. So once again, this is on a slanted point of view, but the dude is dangerous. I take all the blame. If you wonder how he lost to Charles, is Charles really good? Yeah, duh. Another reason is because I got to interview Dariush before that fight, so I probably jinxed it. But no, all jokes aside, he has a soft spot in my heart, and to me, dude, like this is a great opportunity for him to come back on the map, because his last fight, by the way, it wasn't because he I forget who it was off the top of my head, but Dariush just got paid for a fight because the fighter pulled out. It just happened, and I'm blanking it so bad. I should have wrote it down. But either which way, he has a technical win because he showed up, he made weight, got paid for it. The fight fell through, not his fault. So in that regard, it's like he got a win without getting any damage. And if you can get that later in your career, hell yeah. So with that being said, he's in a good spot to win this. Like Moicano is good, but he's very beatable, and Dariush has all the skill sets to beat him. Yeah, like Moicano is dangerous as well, but man, I really think this is a very winnable fight for Dariush, and a fight that could at least get him back into being mentioned again, because you're right, dude. He kind of fell out of people's minds or conversations at the very least.
And I think as well, if you look at those two losses that he's had recently, Sarukian, a lot of power very early on. Charles Oliveira, I think, is incredibly underrated. Even Gagey says he's one of the hardest hitters I've ever fought. So big power punches catching him early on. Does Moicano have that same kind of one-shot punching power? I'm not too sure about that. It's one of the reasons why I'm maybe leaning towards Dariush to win this one. But we'll talk about his opponent here. So Renato Moicano, a 20-6 record. He's also had quite a few notable wins as well. He derailed Benoit Saint-Denis. You've also got Jalen Turner, Drew Dober, Brad Vidal's in there, Jai Herbert. And going back to his time as a featherweight, Cub Swanson, Calvin Cater, Jeremy Stevens. So pretty impressive resume as well for Moicano. Maybe a little bit more known these days for his sort of social media presence, the whole sort of Money Moicano thing, but a very solid fighter and one guy who, on his day, is capable of beating anyone in that top 10.
Yep. That's a great assessment. The dude's dangerous. He's a legitimate. I just does not mean to sound like an insult, and I'm sorry if it does. He's a legitimate top 10 fighter. Like, he's, to me, legitimately one of the best top 10 fighters on the whole planet. The question is, I don't think he's number 1 through 3 though. Like, you know what I mean? And that's fine. You're the upper echelon of dangerous people. I just think that Dariush on his best day is a top 5. And I think that's where the slight level of difference is. But Moicano could win this fight, man. Like, I do not let my glazing for Dariush make it me seem blind to the fact that Moicano can definitely win this. Like, maybe, I think, do you know what the odds are off the top?
Yeah, I've got them here. So Moicano is a -170 favorite, Beneil plus 130.
Okay. So there we go. I actually think those odds kind of represent how if I took my feelings out of it, I could see how those odds almost perfectly reflect not just the sentiment or just the way that people feel about the fight and maybe just how it goes. But man, I think it's going to be a great fight. Both guys are world class. I can say that for sure.
One of the things I'm going to be most intrigued by is where this fight plays out, because if you know any of these two guys, they do their best work when it comes to the grappling exchanges. So Moicano, Jiu-Jitsu black belt. Looking at the stats here, he's got 10 submissions on his record. Beneil has 8. So I'm going to be interested to see if any of them choose to take it to the mat. We've seen with Beneil that if he has a guy who's willing to grapple with him, he's willing to dish it back. The Gamrot fight comes to mind in that regard, which I have to say, if you get the chance, if you want like a great jiu-jitsu wrestling based battle, Beneil Dariush versus Mateusz Gamrot, it was on one of the Abu Dhabi cards, is fantastic, well worth checking out. So I'm going to be interested in that regard. And if they do choose the old adage and it's two grapplers having a kickboxing match, who do you think has the upper hand there? Because I think Beneil has more power, but I think Moicano is maybe more technical. Because with Moicano, what sticks in my mind is the fight against Calvin Cater. We know that Cater is a hell of a good boxer, but Moicano, he ate him apart with low kicks.
I think the striking department edge. Okay, just punching wise, Beneil, but total striking with the kicks element, Moicano I think has a little bit. Also, if you add, what does it take? Both the guys are 36 years old. I think Moicano has a little bit more gas tank in that realm as well. So should they let's say, try out the grappling realm, blow some fuel there, stalemate, and then they got to explore option B. That's where I think there's the recipe turns dangerous against Dariush, to be honest. If they're gonna explore the striking, let's do that nice and early.
I'm personally going to say there's value in Beneil with an upset here, so he is going to be my personal pick, namely because I think that the way to exploit Beneil is to... I don't think he has the best striking defense. And if you look at some of these losses, it's guys who've exploited that and one-shotted him. I don't think Moicano has the power to do that. That being said, if we watch this fight on Saturday night and Beneil comes in there and looks a shadow of his former self, because we're talking about a 36-year-old guy who's been out of action for 18 months, I honestly wouldn't be surprised. But I do think there's value in Beneil winning this one.
I also want to throw it out there that at the risk of spilling not any personal information, but too much information, just trust me or don't, or fade me. I don't care. Dariush was trying to get fights. The people that it was most likely to get fights with were picking and choosing who they wanted to go dancing with. And then, as you know, there's some people who ducked multiple people recently, if you read between the lines, you know what I'm saying? So with all that being said, it's not like Dariush was just sitting on his like two thumbs, you know what I mean? Like he was ready to go. There was times he wanted to go. The business got in the way more than anything. So, but you're right, dude. The 18-month layoff is an 18-month layoff. End of story. That's real. I'm just glad it's two 36-year-olds. I don't have to worry about it too much.
Well, you might need to worry, if age is a big concern when it comes to worry, you might need to worry about this one, because we have a 23-year-old who is fighting in fight number 3 for this one. And from a guy who hasn't fought in 18 months to a guy who hasn't fought in 30 days, Josh Van is back in action just a few weeks after he appeared at UFC 316, and he has a golden opportunity to introduce himself to the Flyweight top 5. He's going to be taking on the number 1 seed, Brandon Royval, who is a minus 130 favourite. You can get Josh Van at plus 100. So originally this was supposed to be Brandon Royval taking on Manel Kape. A lot of people billing this one as a potential Flyweight title eliminator. We'll look at this firstly on one of two fronts. So where do you stand on Josh Van and this incredibly quick turnaround? And also, once again, it's another example of Manel Kape and the kind of hoodoo that surrounded his UFC career so far. Another fight cancellation.
Manel Kape is slowly but surely turning into the bite-sized Rumble Johnson, right? Like, you want to see him in a fight, but is the dude going to make the fight? Is he going to make the weight? Like, do we got to cancel this? We got to make this? Do we got to move the date again? Manel Kape turning into a spectacle. He went from like something you wanted to like. He's making a fool out of himself in recent times. But I'm not here to dog on him too much. I just had to get off my chest. Great job. This echoes to what we talked about earlier, right? Take that opportunity, dog. You're talking about a spot that was, backdoors rumored as that's the number 1 contender shot. Take that spot. Take that shot. Make it happen. Great. Now, on a sports side of it, I'm not the biggest fan. I don't like the super quick turnaround. You already set your body up to peak one time and you fought. It's not like you set up and the fight didn't happen. You still fought, even though it totally went your way and it's all good. I get it, but I don't know, dude. There's a level of science that they understand that I don't fully understand. But long story short, you can only peak once in roughly a 6 weeks period. Like, it takes 6 weeks for you to like reset your body's optimum, I don't know, being. So with that being said, that's dangerous. That's the only dangerous part. Other than that, I love this fight. I love the opportunity. Josh, the only thing I would say to you, Mr. Van, is change the nickname. It should be Mini Van. All right, just run with it. You're small. You're killing everybody in the division. Josh Minivan, I'm a big fan. Go for it, dude.
If he was in the UK, if he was British, he would be Ford Transit.
Nice. Good old Ford.
Honestly, best utility vehicle you can come across, the Ford Transit.
I didn't go this long in life to end up in a Ford promotion, and I will not. for no good reason, because I don't know what models they have available to you folks. Anything else. All right, that's my promo.
Yeah, we could do with sponsorship, so please get in touch with us.
There we go. There, hit him up. Hit
Yeah.
him up. But Royval, I mean, come on, man. Like, talk about Mr. Number 5. He is, right? Like, some people match their rank. And I'm not even trying to be a dirtbag about this or make a side joke. Like, dude, he's legit. Like, when you talk about the top 5 best guys, he's number 5. So, there's a big ask for Van, but I don't fault him for taking it, like I just said a second ago. This would be horrendous. Dude, how bad for Royval would it be if he, excuse the term, shit the bed?
I think given the ceiling that Joshua Van has, I don't think it wouldn't be sacrilege to lose to a guy like that. But the expectation is, bearing in mind the short notice, Royval should win this one. I kind of get the feeling as well, though, from reading a lot of the punters online, a lot of the social media forums, and even looking at the bookmakers, because I checked Brandon Royval's last 5 fights. He's been the bookmakers' underdog in all 5 of them. And during that time, I think he's gone 4-1, and that loss was against Pantoja in the title fight. So this guy is very talented. Again, it's the same with Beneil. I don't think the public rate him as highly as what his talent says. I don't know if that's maybe because he's a little bit erratic, he's a little bit wild, and people just see him as a bit of a madman.
The one thing that always sticks out in my head, and I don't know if it echoes in their mind too, is just having a fighter who has the possibility of their shoulder popping. Like, that's a big liability, and his has already came out twice, I believe, in competition. We don't know how many times it's been out total, and it slides. From what my understanding of talking to people is, it gets easier. It gets easier to go every time it goes. So that's man. If you're betting on this one, good luck to you. Either which way you're going, I have no advice. My first initial reaction is go and support Royval. I think like that's where my most of my brain goes. But then there's this strong part of me that's like, for the chaos, like, let's go minivan. I'm so torn on this, dude. I'm making my pick on the spot, and I'm going to go Royval just because I doubt if Van can be the same man 2 times, like, back to back.
There's a lot of people, though, that are behind Josh Van, a 14-2 record. And during that time, he's also had wins over Brendan Silva, Rory Sayua, where he completely neutralized all of Sayua's takedown attempts. Cody Dernan he's also beat as well, and Edgar Chavez, which is part of this sort of 4-fight winning streak. It's 4 fights in 12 months, so I think even though there are concerns over how active he is, and I share those as well, I don't like fighters who compete far too much because there is always this risk of, as you mentioned before, not peaking, underperforming, and like you look at, I'm going to use like Alex Pereira as an example for that. I think part of the reason that the Khalil fight ended up being as competitive as it was because it was so many fights in a short space of time, and he showed the mileage in that fight. And I think yes, there is the risk of Van doing the same thing. I also think, well, it's a big ask. It's a big ask to go from Bruno Silva, who is a good but not great fighter, and going to Brandon Royval, who's been to the top. He's fought for a title before. He's beaten the likes of Brandon Moreno, who has a very good boxing background in his own right. It feels a bit too much too soon for my liking. I'm getting sort of Frankie versus Yair vibes.
That's a great call comparison there. I agree the same way. It's a little bit much. I think that's a great. It's not undoable, but it's a lot to ask, and I just don't know if the minivan can go up that kind of hill. Yeah, I'm not stopping with that. I'm gonna keep going. Also, shout out to my brother Charles Johnson. Love that guy, and maybe that's why I kind of discount Van, and which I shouldn't. It's reverse psychology. You should like cheer them on and be like, I just think that I was like, dude, I just don't understand how Charles is still where he's at and this guy's getting this opportunity, but that's a whole nother story. I just don't think he's ready for Royval, respectfully. On once again, I'll say it again. I'll say it in a different sentence, but the same thing. To make him look as good as he did last week against Brandon ain't gonna happen. Like, he's not gonna be able to duplicate that performance, and that's exactly what I guarantee the public is going to be expecting, and when it doesn't happen, they're going to be up in arms, but that's just not the way it works.
You've actually made a really good point there. I'll just go off on a little bit of a tangent because this was something that me and Joe talked about on the Patreon page, and I want to maybe get like a third opinion. You brought up the Charles Johnson loss there for Josh Van. At one point, do you think a fighter's loss no longer carries weight? Because look, if you're bringing up Adriano Martins to try and discredit Islam Makhachev, you're just being silly because it was such a long time ago, two very different fighters. But what about Josh Van versus Charles Johnson? What about Weili losing to Rose twice? Like, is there a point when it's just like, yeah, it's too long ago, it no longer means anything?
Okay, for rematches, I want at least I know it's probably stupid, but I want no less than 4 matches between the two to have happened like somewhere else before, to me, where I think like a timetable on that. And then this sounds crazy because, I just I'll make a hypocrite of myself. I'm always cheering for Charles, but the reality is I think 2. I don't even judge fighters' performances greater than 2 fights ago. Like, they are a composition of what they've been drilling for the last 2 fights, no more, no less. A lot of time people go, oh, what happened to this or that? Or they used to do this and that. When? 4, 5, 6, 7 fights ago? Those habits are been written over and replaced. Every camp, a new set of habits get reinstalled. So, some familiar, some new. So with that being said, I don't know, man. I'm just gonna leave that information out there and hate me if you want.
Because I legitimately think there's people out there that have forgot the Charles Johnson fight happened, and it was 12 months ago.
That's the upside of both sides, both brothers being active and giving us good fights. Van has given us a lot to talk about in the positive to make us forget and do good things. He's beat some other people that I thought was going to beat him. And then on the other side, CJ's had a mostly good run as well too. Like, they've kind of given us other things to eat, if you will, other things to think about. So I don't really blame the public for kind of forgetting about it.
In terms of this fight, though, we'll make our final predictions here. I think that if Josh Van's rise up the rankings was a little bit more natural, so let's say he fought, say, the number 7 guy, and then he fought the number 4 guy, and then he fought Royval. By the time that fight happens, I would pick Josh Van to win, because I think he'd have the mileage, the maturity, and rounding out elements of his game to beat a guy like Brandon Royval. But on short notice, at 23 years old, I think it's maybe a step too far. So I think you go with the bookmakers and you go Brandon Royval to win this one.
If we're talking money, then yeah, money is on Royval. That's a fact. Now, that being said, if Van wins, mark my words, I will become one of the biggest Joshua Minivan fans I'll definitely America, maybe worldwide. I will go for a worldwide ranking of fandom, and I will only not support him, and I will stay neutral, which otherwise I would have been on Charles Johnson's side should they ever rematch. Other than that, yeah, man. Like, I just want Van for the chaos, for the story, for like, why not? Like, why not have a young 23-year-old come up and just like, what? This is what we tell everybody. Like, this is what my generation got told. I know we'd be telling it to every generation below us. Like, hustle, man. Take every opportunity. Make them believe, right? Like, Van's taking this opportunity. Make them believe. Shock the world. Like, make it happen, dude. Like, I'm for it. But if we're talking money, then yeah, put that on Brandon probably.
And dare I say as well, given the current state of the flyweight division, with how frequently Pantoja's fought and how he is short of fresh contenders. Josh Van winning this fight he's pretty much fighting for the belt, regardless of who wins the co-main.
The freshest, the hottest, freshest contender you could possibly have would be that scenario. So yeah, the UFC's in a very win-win-win. Even in a loss, even if he goes out there and just gives a good fight and loses, Joshua Van's stock still climbs. Like, the UFC is gonna get a bonus from this no matter what, and hopefully us as fans, we do too.
And speaking of that title fight, we're going to be talking about it right now. We are going back to the flyweight division, and it is Alexandre Pantoja who is making I think it's the 4th defense of his flyweight title, and he's going to be taking on Kai Kara-France, the number 4 seed. Pantoja, you can get him at -265. Kai Kara-France comes in at +200. We ran a poll on the YouTube page asking people to pick who they think is going to win this one. They are going a lot more in favour of Pantoja. 80% of people are picking him to win this one. And I'm going to start off by saying this. I've become quite jaded with the current UFC product. You can kind of get that impression when I did my opening monologue there. And one of the things that I've really kind of been annoyed by recently is the amount of champions that we have in the UFC who, once they get the belt, their first instinct is, I want to move up, or I want to move down, I want to get that second belt. Ever since Conor won that second belt, that carries much more weight than being that kind of old-fashioned, long-reigning champion who just keeps turning back contenders. You look at like GSP, Anderson Silva, Mighty Mouse. And honestly, it's made me appreciate a guy like Pantoja more, because I think of all the champions in the UFC, except maybe, I think Shev's the only other comparison. Outside of them two, they are old school throwback champions who are just content to stay in their own lane and just beat the next in line. And I think that's so refreshing to see.
Yeah, maybe I remember it more favorably for him because he came up short, but Izzy did a great job holding down his belt. He did try to jump up and got swatted. But regardless, Pantoja, he's everything you want in a champion. He's active. He takes on the most available guy, like the most dangerous available guy. Yeah, did they have to patchwork him with Urseg that one time? So what? But it's not on him. That's not on him. That's because he wanted to fight. So people want to grumble about, people not fighting. I'm with that. Don't be jumping the gun and trying to double champ up too soon. It's corny. It's a little bit played. I'm definitely more for holding the title. Pantoja, I mean, he's a great champion, man. He has a great story. His story's real. It's and here's the bummer part. You can quote my dad and my brother. They both remember this. From the very first fight I ever saw of Kai Kara-France in the UFC, I said, oh, dang, this guy's got something. I wouldn't be surprised if I see him fight for the title. And then he fought another time. And I told them, hey, I think this guy, I don't know, I'm just a fan. I'm just going to say right now, I'm going to be a fan of his for a while. Well, here we are. Fast forward a couple of years later, and the guy's fighting for a title, and I'm still a fan of his. This storyline in this card repeats itself. You guys been noticing 3-4 times where I'm stuck. I'm genuinely stuck in the middle on 3-4 fights on this card. So this is one where I respect both sides so heavy. I like both sides so much. Dude, what are you thinking?
I would like to think that we're going to get a really competitive fight, because I always love the striker versus grappler equation. I think that goes back to the early UFCs, which were pretty much built around that kind of style management. That being said, I think there's elements of Kai's game that I have worries over how competitive Kai could make this one. And I say this as somebody who wants it to be competitive and thinks that... I'll put it this way. I think the big X factor when it comes to this fight for me, it comes down to Pantoja. Because, don't get me wrong, Pantoja has been wonderful during this run as champion. And I was somebody who was a little bit skeptical when he first won the belt. I think you could maybe make an argument for Brandon Moreno winning that fight. It wasn't an egregious decision that Pantoja ended up getting. But I can maybe see an argument for Moreno winning that one. And then you look at, say, the way he slowed down against Royval, and the Usyk fight was quite close. But sometimes with a champion, you get that kind of fighter who knows exactly what to do to just squeak out the decisions, to just do enough to sway the judges and get it done. It's something that I've kind of come to respect. I look at like Shev versus Manon Fiorot. Like, Shev is a fighter who maybe isn't as physical, isn't as fast as she maybe once was, but is intelligent enough to know what to do to scrape past the Manon Fiorots of the world. Pantoja's in that exact same bracket, in my opinion. But with that being said, 35 years old, and he's also a guy who has relied on his chin for a lot of his success. And there always comes a point when the chin starts going away. And if there's one guy who can maybe break that, crack that chin, it is Kai Kara-France in this weight class.
Nailed it. Kai is the guy. He can definitely bang and get Pantoja into deep water. But Pantoja knows how to strike with you just a little bit, duck under a punch just a little bit enough, and grab onto you. And now he's on you. Now he's on you like you just got doused in paint. You're not getting it off until the bell rings. At least that's what is shown. To that point, though, I feel like a lot of people like get it mixed up. A lot of the championship fights that happen where the champion is fighting someone pretty low of the caliber, or probably maybe getting a gift of a title shot, that's the ones where they get smoked, a la what we were just talking about with Makhachev and Moicano. Like, when it is really the next guy up, like, or close to the next guy up, the margin of victory is going to be scraping by. You're talking about the very best versus the next or next very best person. It's tough. That's tough stuff, man. That's winning by margins. So, yeah. And I don't know, man. This is a fight that I have very little confidence in the fact of what my opinion would weigh out to, or how much of it would come true. Both these guys really good. I'm a fan of both, but are we doing the picks? Do I spill the beans? Do I say where I'm going?
Not just yet, because I want to talk about some of the X's and O's. So kind of, if Kai Kara-France is going to pull off this upset, and based on the polls I'm seeing, based off the bookmakers, he is the underdog coming into this one. Is this just a case of he needs to land that big punch? Does he maybe have to survive the Pantoja takedown, the backpacking that we come to expect early on? What are Kai's paths to victory? Is it just big punch?
I would actually not go with the big punch, because we could speculate when Pantoja's chin is going to crack. And do you want to be the guy risking that, or do you want to use the thing that will get you into less trouble and be what Kai is? He's light on his feet. He's fast. He'd be real fast. He'd maneuver extremely well. So, with that being said, I think volume, light punches, much of it in and out, side to side, all around, so Pantoja can't grab onto you. Be magical. Don't get too fancy. Don't be spinning stuff, but just use Kai's speed of feet. Like the foot speed between the two are night and day. So that to me is huge, and probably the most important part. And if, to be honest, probably a death by 1,000 cuts, because once again, why bang with Pantoja? So he can throw a bomb. He's arguably got better bombs. So you want to sit in exchange with him? And I don't know. And if you're gonna explore what you mentioned, which is true, Pantoja, maybe want to explore the gas tank option. Well, then poke his tires, make him run flat, see him later in the 4th and 5th, and use that footwork speed and see what could happen.
Does the Askarov fight maybe give you confidence towards Kai as well? Because that was another guy whose modus operandi was get this fight to the ground, try and submit you by taking the back. He survived that adversity on the ground and ended up winning that decision, because any time that they were opening on the feet, he was tagging and piecing Askarov apart. And it could maybe be in a similar situation where it is grappling heavy, but Kai's able to do just enough to win 1 or 3 rounds.
whether you were a KFF fan from the jump or whether you're speculating on him now because you want to maybe look at him to make some money, either way, that fight gotta give you confidence. Either that was like, yes, that's the thing I want to see for you to be able to really take that world title, or yeah, that's what I needed from you to bet on you in a world title fight. Either or, yeah, yeah, that was huge. That was massive.
I think there is. I always say this when it comes to pretty much. I'll be honest, pretty much any fight, unless we're talking about like plus 700 underdogs. I think every fighter has a path to victory, and I can see one towards Kai. Bearing in mind some of those questions about Pantoja's durability at this advanced age, and also as well, you've got to bear in mind Pantoja's last two wins are Steve Erceg, who, as much as I do like Steve Erceg, he is out of form right now. I think he's fighting opponents at a level which are maybe too high for him at this moment in time. And Kaya Sakura, who was making his UFC debut, thrown straight into a title match, and hasn't fought since. So we still don't 100% know how good he is at the UFC level. So I think maybe winning those two fights kind of might be giving people a bit too much of a false impression over how good Pantoja is right now.
Okay, and I can see the argument. I hear that, and I go, okay, fine. Not Pantoja's doing. That's a statement of the division and the fact that he's already beat everybody else that you'd want to try to throw in the conversation. The UFC is trying desperately to not give you a rematch. That's why you're getting these people, because he's already beaten them. That's the part. And then if I was to support or counter to that, my thing would be then, well, give me the two names that Kai has beaten that Pantoja hasn't. And because you can't, then it's like, well, okay, then we have to just, the division is where the division is, and I'm super glad this Kai, I was hoping for Asakura, but regardless, that Kara-France can get it done. And it's a fresh, intriguing matchup. Like, I don't know. I mean, I feel like, just like you think, I'm gonna make a joke here to the greater community, but just like you think every fighter has a path to victory, or you can at least try to find one. I feel like the fans nowadays can find a pathway to bitch about shit. They just that's it.
Except Tom Aspinall. At the moment, that guy can do no wrong in the eyes of fans. But trust me, the moment Tom faces any kind of adversity, they'll turn on him, like they do with every other fighter.
For whatever reason, they bet the wrong way, cry about it. I've seen some fighters have shown me, folks, if you DM a fighter after they lose because the wager didn't go your way, please stop it. Get some help. Okay? Like, I've actually seen some of these, and my bro, they are horrendous and hilarious. But what do you think? You think Kai's got the skills to make this happen? You think this is another end still?
Outside of a puncher's chance, I'm going to go with Kaya Sakura. I think that he's going to get the takedown quite early on.
I mean, Kara-France. You said Sakura.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, I think he's going to take Kara-France down. And then I think second round, I'm going to say backpack, rear naked choke, and still for Pantoja.
I'm stuck. My heart's in two different directions. I want my prediction from 4 years ago to hit, and hit for absolutely no money. I want Kai to have his moment. I just like him. I love the story of Pantoja. I also like him a lot too. So my fandoms are neutralized. It's just that I'm gonna honestly break this fight down to one simple thing. I'm giving the benefit to the champion, because they are the champion. This is a champion's bonus here. He's already proven he can defend it against multiple different characters, or if you will. I'm not quite sure if Kai Kara-France is bringing something so unique, so dangerous, that Pantoja can't do what has already been mentioned, to scrape by, to squeak by, to do his thing. Yeah, so there we go. That's my intelligent version of the breakdown, and that's my pick. Let's go, Pantoja. and still.
So now we move on to our main event of the evening, and the lightweight title is on the line. Ilia Topuria will be moving up from 145 and immediately jumping straight into a title match. But if he wants to get a hold of that second belt, he needs to go through a former champion in Charles Oliveira. Ilia is a big favourite for this one, minus 440 favourite. Charles Oliveira comes in at plus 310. The INC viewers on the poll on the YouTube page, they're going 71% for Ilia to win this one, 29% for Charles. So let's set this up. Let's do a little bit of backstory in regards to this fight. So Islam Makhachev, after UFC 315, made the decision that he was going to vacate the 155 title and instead pursue his attempt to face Jack Della Maddalena for the welterweight belt. This created a vacancy at 155, and the guy that originally vacated his own belt down a weight class below, Ilia Topuria, gets a chance to immediately move up. So, one of the things that a lot of people have speculated, now the UFC haven't formally said this, but bearing in mind the way the Makhachev has been handled and the way Ilia has been handled, have we seen the end of the double champ experiment?
I think we're going to see a tapering of it. I don't think it's over. I think it's just a little bit of what was mentioned earlier in the podcast, my dude. The whole, like, it was aggravating to me. It was aggravating to the matchmakers. The whole, let me take someone who wants to jump up from below and interrupt the flow of this weight class. Let me jump up. All that other circus stuff, chasing two belts, but nobody really defending them, one or the other, that being. But it was just getting ugly and messy, and then it starts that whole, like, well, you know, if you got two belts, then one belt means nothing. So then you have, like, what is it? Does it mean more? Does it mean less? It started just getting messy, and I'm glad I did something. The official statement that I saw was that they have not banned double champ or the chasing of it. It's just that you have to actively defend the belt you already have, which makes sense. It seems like that's the part where you're like, they had to make a rule for that. Like, that wasn't just, like, understood between everybody involved, but the fact that, yeah, now it's a rule that they have to do that. I mean, now we're gonna see who honestly wants it, and I think it'll be far less. I think you'll see what we're seeing right now: guys give it up in honest pursuit.
Because I think because in my opinion, to be an active champion, you should be defending your belt twice every year. And if you add a second belt into the equation, that's 4 times in a calendar year, which is, unless you're Josh Van, pretty much impossible.
Right, and Josh Van's still doing it in one class, right? So to effectively move up and down that it's hard work. That's why very few people do it, or, you know, and I'm not really sure what criteria, like, what would make me happy. All I know is it would have to be a minimum of 1 each every year for sure. Minimum for sure. But, like, it just gets messy once again. So we'll see. But whoever does do it next, I'm going to be really impressed. And really, I think it'll put the prestige on having 2 titles again. Because what was happening before was, like, it was making 2 titles seem normal and making 1 title seem irrelevant, which is not the way it should be.
And I think it did a real disservice to, because I'll be honest, I have never been a big fan of the double champ experiment. I think that I find it quite gimmicky. I think it loses that kind of long-reigning dominant champion that we talked about, like the Andersons, the GSPs, the Mighty Mouses of the world, which, in my opinion, that is the kind of champion I carry in a lot more weight than beating 1 or 2 fighters and then immediately jumping up to try and get that second belt. And also as well, I don't think it's fair on the rest of the weight class. Like, if you're one of those fighters in, say, I don't know, the lightweight division, and you've been clawing and grinding your way up the weight class to earn a number 1 contender match, and somebody moving up from the weight class below is allowed to jump the queue, that's not fair on them. And if the fighter in the weight class below vacates the belt, the 2 people who are going to be fighting for that, they're not seen as legitimate champions because they haven't beaten the man to do it. Like, there's a lot of talk right now about like Weili moving up to fight Chev. How is that fair on Werner Janjidoba, who has earned a title fight on merit?
Right, and that's where we gotta leave some of this stuff out. Like fair is not in the sport anymore. Meritocracy is way down. It's about selling big fights. We know that. It doesn't mean we like it. I agree with you. The part that I think was the most damaging was that the what you mentioned of the vacant. It's happening right here. Like, does this title, like the lightweight title, had some weight to it? Because Makhachev had it. Yeah, okay, he had some funky defenses of it, but whatever. It was a spectacle, right? It was like, oh, this is a fight, like big time. Let's see it. Now, not saying that this isn't a fight that I don't want to see, because it totally is, but the championship part of it. Like, I know neither of these guys, should they beat each other, neither of them really beat Islam. So it's like, what does that really mean? I know the process of time will wash those feelings away and shit will move forward and who cares. But just right away, like right now, like I care only because this matchup is just intriguing. But as far as a championship match, it has, for me personally, this has nothing. Like, the spice on it has nothing, has no flavor of championship. This is just a hot fight that I would like to see regardless.
And obviously we're going to be seeing the two fights at lightweight and at welterweight playing out over the coming months. If you had to choose right now, what do you think would have been a tougher matchup for Islam Makhachev? Jack Della or Ilia?
I mean, not taking anything away from Topuria, but I am up, ladies and gentlemen, up weight classes, up, bigger. That's the challenge. There's a reason why the ultimate challenge is heavyweight, because weight classes do matter to a point, to every point, and the point is size. And when the guys are anywhere near the same athletic realm, then size matters. Like, if you're anywhere near technically even, size ultra matters. Like, 170, excuse the pun, is greater than 145. Like, it's not even I don't even know how people can mix that up. Last but not least, JDM showed us something we don't know yet about Mr. Topuria. Topuria, we know he can fight. We know he can wrestle. We know he's intelligent enough to be a world champion and beat some of the best. We don't know if he has heart. We've never seen him like bloodied and have to dig deep and like have and I'm not Korean zombie, but you know, a zombie-like creature in Bilal who's not quitting. Like take this championship from me type moment. And he answered that call. He answered that level. He is all that. So we don't know. We don't know that yet about Topuria, if he's made of that kind of metal, but we do now with JDM. So yeah, that's a bigger challenge. Plus, let's not forget, these athletes are finely tuned machines, especially out of the Nurmagomedov camp. They are, I mean, dialed in for their nutrition, their training. The exact amount of everything they do is like, it's like baking high-end pastries. They know every measurement of everything. And so, with that being said, this is the first rodeo. That would be the first rodeo for Islam. And that's a big thing for an athlete. Like, what is they're dialed in at that weight class? I'm real interested in all of that.
So we're going to be talking about Ilia Topuria first and foremost. So 16-0 record. So as mentioned before, this is going to be, it's actually going to be his second time competing at lightweight. And we'll get to the first time because I think that's something that a lot of people have been bringing up over these past couple of days. But some of his victories in the featherweight division included those two big dogs there. Max Holloway, Alexander Volkanovski, who we both finished. Max Holloway being knocked out for the first time in his career in doing so. Also, there were wins over Josh Emmett, Bryce Mitchell, Ryan Hall, Damon Jackson, and Yusuf Zalal. So an impressive run to the title. Even Yusuf Zalal, who, in my opinion, is really started to turn his career around because he was cut by the UFC. He then came back. He's done quite well for himself since then. 6 KOs, 8 submissions. What's interesting to note in regards to Topuria, though, is we now know him for his boxing and his stand-up skills and the big power he has. You go back and you look at his record here. 7 of his, I think, first 8 wins came by submission. He was known as a grappling threat when he came into the UFC. And since then, it's just all been power. People always make that joke of grapplers falling in love with their hands. You can, in a strange way, you can make that same comparison with Ilia.
You definitely can, except he doesn't look unnatural doing it.
Mm-hmm.
All the ones who before him, you could tell them it was their second love. The translation of expression didn't come through nearly as clear. With Topuria, he walks the walk, talks the talk. He looks like he's always been an elite striker. That's where his roots from. I do want to highlight those wins, though. Yes, proud native Hawaiian. Am I always backing up Max? Yes, but that's not where my argument is going. Just give me 5 more seconds. He beat both of those men deep into the 30s, deep into their fight career. Both men coming down to the weight class, cutting that weight again down to the weight class when they'd recently enjoyed the air at 155. So let's just never forget those parts of the story. I just need to put it. It's not like he was conking them under different circumstances, but regardless, he's sleeping them. He's winning. He is. I get it. People love undefeated. He's that young, brash, undefeated, beating up people, getting those wins over big names. He's doing everything you're supposed to do to be a megastar. And I can kind of get it. I'm not on his train, but if you are, I get it and enjoy it.
And what do you think of the techniques in particular that Ilia's using to find so much success?
He dictates. Well, that's the best part. He's dictating exactly where the fight is happening. He can put it exactly in the range for his power to show up. He doesn't really worry about getting taken down, and he hasn't in recent times had to worry about taking anyone down because he's trying to get them in that small space for his punching to work. So, he honestly, like, he's a tough puzzle at that weight class that he was at. The men at 155 are so different. The size is completely different. I think it's one of the biggest 10-pound, like, out of all the weights that are 10 pounds apart, physiologically, I think the men at 155 are more different to 45ers than any other division, in my opinion.
Can you carry some weight into what happened when Ilia fought at 155 before? Because that was the Jai Herbert fight where, if you remember, Jai Herbert, head kick, and it's probably the only time really we've seen Ilia in big trouble.
Yeah, and that's where I'm going with this, right? Like, respect to Jai Herbert, but, like, this is Charles Oliveira, who is already known. Like, we see how big he looks, how long he looks, how much body he carries against a lot of his opponents. I mean, respect or disrespect, however you want to take it. Ilia Topuria is a small little man. Like he takes pictures at very generous angles with very generous backdrops. You don't see him alongside with a lot of individuals. That's on purpose. He's a small, little, I said, you guys say a wee little man. And that's it, you know? So that part of this fight is, to me, a huge story that I feel is kind of getting undersung.
Yeah. I think that's more of a Scottish term, wee little man. It's Newcastle, it's more like proper bairn or something like that.
I appreciate the education, my brother.
It's a good thing, though, you did bring up Charles Oliveira, because that's what we are going to be doing right now. A 35-10 record. Some of his notable wins in his portfolio. He's beaten, let's be frank, pretty much everyone in this weight class. So, Michael Chandler twice, Beneil Dariush, who we mentioned before, Justin Gaethje, Dustin Poirier. Past his prime, Tony Ferguson, but there was maybe still a little bit life there in Tony. He was just after the Gaethje loss, so people thought there might still be the old Tony there. Kevin Lee, Jim Miller in there as well, Clay Guida, Jeremy Stevens back down at featherweight. So he's been like a who's who of lightweight contenders. And I have to be honest, when he beat Michael Chandler for the belt, UFC 262, part of me kind of felt like Charles was... It's what we talked about before. He didn't beat the man to get the title, and I kind of feared that the moment he faces someone like a Dustin Poirier or a Justin Gaethje, he was going to get found out. To his credit, though, delivered in those fights, and he completely earned my respect as a worthy champion.
One of the best turnarounds of a career ever. Like, look at his whole record. Before those good times was some bad times, and which was funny because he had some good times right before that. So people thought highly of him. Then he went on like a "you're washed" run. If his bad streak happened in today's UFC, side tangent is like, would he even still be around? But regardless, he made it through his troubled waters and righted his ship. I believe he moved up a weight class, and that's where I'm going to this, dude. Like, the guy has to do every trick in the book the right way, by the way, to make this weight class. He's big at this weight class. He's already killed himself at a lower weight class. Topuria will be conking people who, once again, have high mileage like Charles, but we're coming down, cutting that water, taking that water out of the body. I know a lot of people are on this. I mean, from what I've seen, your poll had 70-something%. I've seen as high as 81% for people for Topuria.
Too high.
Too high, dude. Thank you for saying that. Jump in with me, bro. That's it. So it's tough stuff, man. I'm always okay. Throw my every emotion out of the window. One of the red flags, one of the criteria systems I have in just picking fights is jumping weight class. That's a -1 point for me every time. If it's your first rodeo at that weight class and you're just jumping over there, I think I count that as a negative. There's a lot that goes on with the athlete and the athlete's body, and vice versa, not just the person changing the weight, that new body type that they're dealing with. It's a lot. It's a lot,
Yeah. Two of the things that I think has really helped this sort of turnaround with Charles Oliveira, I think there's two factors in particular. One, I think there was once upon a time when Charles Oliveira did face any kind of adversity, he would crumble. At the first sign of resistance, he would crumble. I think about the Paul Felder fight, which I think was the last fight he lost before he went on this big winning streak. But also as well, I think there's big improvements in his Muay Thai, his use of teep kicks, striking the body. It's helping him to set up the clinch exchanges where he does a lot of his best work, where he's hammering knees to the body, when he's instigating some of the dirty boxing, or he's using those shots to try and set up the back take.
Dude has become a total weapon in all arenas. One thing, hold on with me for a second, it's not a diss. The way he can eat a shot and be on desperate straits and wrangle it back together like it didn't even happen, that is magical. That is something very few ultra elite fighters get to do in any kind of combat sports. There's very few guys who can get just put on the wrong side and fight their way back, claw their way back, and just his composure nowadays is just insane. And mad credit to him.
He does something similar, in my opinion, to what Big Nog would do, which I always loved, is because Charles Oliveira is such a renowned jiu-jitsu practitioner, if he does get rocked and he does get hurt, first instinct, I'm rolling to the back. And because people are so scared of going into that guard, it gives them the time to recover. Like, how many times did we see Big Nog get hurt and it's just immediately, I'm onto the back, and no one would dare jump into it? What I'm going to be interested to see is whether or not... I think Ilia, in my opinion, is confident enough to take that chance and try and jump into the guard. Because I think if you're looking for kind of a case study in terms of the jiu-jitsu side of things, the Ryan Hall fight. How many times did you heard Joe Rogan during that broadcast saying, oh, you don't want to go into Ryan Hall's guard, he's taking a big chance here, this is really dangerous. And he was fearless. He jumped in there, finished him off with ground and pound. I can see a situation where Ilia does hurt Charles, Charles tries that trick and Ilia follows him down. And if he does, that's going to be interesting to see.
That will be interesting to see, and I just want to say Ilia will be one of a few men who believe they could, or they had the skill set. Yeah, I would jump in there. Yeah, I could do it. And then what happens? Is uh, bravery and foolery is twin brothers. So it's tough. It's tough. Let's just say this: that I put more on the faith of not Charles being able to do something magical off his back against Ilias per se, but to do what he needed to do to recover, to get his wits about it, to bring the fight back to a more manageable place where he can right the ship and then carry on the fight. That's the part of his game that I think is dangerous, that he's going to face. Topuria is going to face a guy who knows what to do when getting cracked. Like it or not, the guys who he's fought previous, they all want to fight back. They want to fight fire with fire. He's going to fight a guy who's going to fight you with ice. And I'm super interested into seeing how that plays out.
Couple of stats which I found quite interesting, which Charles Oliveira is going to have to break here. So this is going to be the third time that Charles Oliveira has fought for a vacant title. It's never happened at lightweight before. I think it might have happened with some of the guys in the early UFC. I'm tempted to say it sounds like something Tim Sylvia did, fighting for a vacant title 3 times. But also as well, no lightweight has ever regained the title. Do you think Charles Oliveira could be the first?
This is a scenario where it works. This is how those kind of stats get broken. Exactly this kind of scenario where the title was just discarded by the champion. I don't think he would have under normal circumstances, respectfully. But now that it's 50-50, whether you like him or not. There's only 2 guys in this race, and that's it. It's 50-50. He has a 50-50 chance of making history that way.
So which way are you putting your money?
Oh, fade me, but I'm not. I can't put money on a fighter that I that heavily dislike and is moving up a weight class. Like, moving up a weight class is a big deal to me. It always will be. And I respect it a lot. And the fact that Charles isn't just somebody, in another universe, Charles is one of Ilia's. Let's say Ilia jumped up and fought Makhachev and beat him. Wouldn't Charles be one of his first defenses? Mm-hmm. Like this fight at this weight class is so good. So I'm just going to go with the guy who's been running this weight class once again against some of the best guys to ever do it, and put the edge there. I'm just gonna say once again, there's a reason why weight classes exist, and I think that's gonna be apparent at the end of this fight.
Maybe it's me drinking the Kool-Aid. Maybe it's me listening to Luke Thomas a little bit too much. I am picking Ilia to win this one. I think that some of the technical X's and O's that he has. I love his feint work. I love the way that he's able to coax fighters to the fence to land some of his best offense. And also as well, I have concerns over Charles' chin. He has been rocked. He has been hurt a couple of times against other big punches. And we know that Ilia can crack. Whether that translates as well as a 155er, I don't know as of yet. I am picking Ilia to win this one. But I completely agree with you. I think the line is far too wide. If this was, I would say, Ilia 160, Charles plus 140, that line to me is perfect.
Yeah, I'm not even the biggest gambling person, so take this with a grain of salt and, please bet responsibly. With that being said, full disclosures out of the way, you want to give me Charles Oliveira 3 times my money, dude? You want to get into a fist fight with Charles Oliveira, what I just said, a 50-50 proposition, and you want to go 3 times my way? Yeah. Good. Why not? I don't really see why not. Like, okay, do I think Ilia has... Okay, move my heart out of it. I think Ilia, if you're going to bet money, bet Ilia. Okay, that's my answer. But who I think wins? I think fucking Charles wins, and at that extra juice, why not? Why not?
I always say that when a line gets too ridiculously high, it's worth a flutter. So thank you very much, Juliana Pena, for winning me a lot of money at 269.
Oh my goodness. And I will take my L on that because I was on the wrong side of the fence on that one real bad. But I'm happy for you, dude. Congratulations. That's what's up.
I always tell the story, I had to buy a Juliana Pena t-shirt and wear it for the 270 preview show because I said that if she wins this fight, I'll do that.
Well, hey, she didn't win the fight, so you're off the hook. But you still won yourself, so that's what matters. That's a good play, by the way. I had some good calls on that card, but I missed the main event real bad.
And on that cheery note, it is time for us to close the UFC 317 preview show. I want to say a big thank you to Rob for joining us once again. We do want to apologise for some of the technical issues. I did have one of my screens loaded up with all my notes, and I missed that maybe there was some technical issues on Rob's camera, but you were able to hear his voice, so hopefully it wasn't too much of a distraction. As a makepiece, we do have plenty of content on INC Live. So up right now is Joe's reaction to the UFC Baku card, as well as his personal take on Jon Jones vacating the heavyweight title. And on Thursday, we've got our latest retro review coming out. So, Rob, one final question before we leave. What were you doing in April 2013?
Oh, geez. So, get my attorney before I answer any further questions. No, I'm just kidding. I can't remember off the top of my head.
Well, what the UFC were doing were integrating the final members of their Strikeforce roster into the fold. And what better place to do so than at Strikeforce's spiritual home of San Jose. We are covering one of the UFC on Fox cards, and probably the closest thing that the UFC ever did to a cross-promotion card. They are covering UFC on Fox, Henderson versus Melendez. So you have Strikeforce's King taking on the lightweight king in the main event. Daniel Cormier makes his UFC debut. And it's also a night that if you're one of the Nate Diaz fans, you might want to forget this one. You might want to choose to forget what happened when he took on Josh Thompson in the third fight on the card. So that's something that you can look forward to on Thursday. Mitchell has done a wonderful job at that one. And we hope that you have enjoyed the UFC 317 preview show. My name is Karl Bainbridge. That's been Rob Nakamura. And we are going to be back in July, where we talk about the last stand for the diamond. We're going to New Orleans for the final fight of Dustin Poirier's career. This is the INC. Thank you so much for watching.